All right, howdy once again. So in this video, we're going to go over using web fonts and why you would use them and what they are and things like that. We'll look at web fonts, web safe fonts, and talk about what those are. We'll talk about using Google Fonts. The good thing about Google Fonts is they're hosted by Google, and they're pretty easy to use. The bad part is they're hosted by Google, I guess. So if they don't like you anymore, if you do something wrong, or they maybe take your fonts away, I don't know. Probably not, but probably fine. But that's Google Fonts are pretty easy to use. We'll also see how to use fonts from Font Squirrel. So Font Squirrel is a place where you can download fonts and use them on your website and put them on your own server, and they're hosted by you, and which gives you more control. The downside is it is a bit more complicated, and because you're basically hosting those font files, and you have to make sure you have a license for it and that kind of thing. So that's what we're gonna do. So web-safe fonts here. Web-safe fonts basically means fonts that are already installed on the user's computer. So remember that basically when you use a font family CSS property, you are specifying fonts that the user has if they need to have the font on their computer to be able to see it. So there's the usual suspects, a lot of fonts that people about: Arial, Helvetica, Times New Roman, Verdana, Georgia, etc. There's a few of them, quite a few of them, but not that many, maybe 15, 20, something like that, where most people, you can be fairly safe that most people will have them. So that gets a little boring, right? You're using the same fonts all the time. It just gets kind of redundant. So web fonts are pretty standard now, and you can use them to customize your page and use more varied fonts and more interesting fonts. So we are going to take this page here and add some custom fonts to it. Right now I think it's all just Times probably. And by the way, I got this zombie text from this Zombie Lipsum website. It's pretty cool, so just I thought that was fun. So anyway, so the first thing we're going to do is use Google Fonts. So Google Fonts has improved quite a bit over the years, gotten some better fonts, more options, that kind of thing. If you look, you can search for fonts up here. You can also sort by categories like serif or sans serif, display, handwriting, etc. You can also sort by number of styles and all kinds of different things. So you can uncheck and check these to display or more or less files. It's kind of an infinite scrolling page. It gets a little bit annoying. There's 900 fonts in here, and you get the bottom. You never actually get to the bottom. I guess after 900 fonts you would. But anyway, so we're going to search for a specific font because I don't want to take all day kind of looking for this. We're going to add what's called Crimson Text. Actually, let's do Butcherman first, since it's kind of fits our theme here. So this is called Butcherman, and it's a kind of a creepy font, right? So to use this font, I just typed in Butch and I got Butcherman. I'm going to use this font by clicking on the little plus sign, and then you'll see this little pop-up drawer at the bottom. It says one family selected down there. So we have one font we've chosen. I'm actually going to put in two to show you how that works. So the other font we're going to use from Google is going to be called Crimson Text. So if I put in CRIM, yeah, there it is, Crimson Text. So you can see Crimson Text here. It says it has 6 styles instead of just one. So I'll show you how that works. I'm going to click on the plus to add that to my collection here. And if I look down here at the bottom, it says 2 families selected. So if I click on that, it pops up and you get some code that you can use. So here's a link tag that you can put into your head of your document. And to use the font, you just can use these 2 font family CSS lines. And that's basically what all there is to it, unless you're going to use some custom versions of the font. So that is what we're going to do. I'm going to click on Customize right here. And you can see that Butcherman down here at the bottom just has one version. Why would you need more than one version of Butcherman? He's the best, right? But this Crimson Text has 6 different versions, right? 6, yeah. So it's got regular and semi-bold 600 and bold 700 italic, etc. So I'm going to use the regular and the bold 700 italic. So I'm going to click on that. And as I did that, if you looked up here, this changed to moderate. It was, if I undo it, it says fast, now it says moderate. So the more different versions of fonts you use, and the more fonts you use, obviously, the the more time it's going to take to load those fonts, because you're basically downloading the fonts to the user's computer, so you have to watch out for that a little bit. You can also see there's a little download button here. You could download this font, I think, and host it yourself, but we're doing it the easy way on this version here. So once I've got both of those selected and Butcherman is still selected, I go back to the embed code. And then all I'm going to do is take this this link here, this link tag, copy that, and I'm going to go to brackets. So I've got this page open in brackets, and it says add Google font link here. So the file is called Web Fonts Example Start. You probably have the same file, so that's the one we're working on. And then where it says add Google font link here, I'm just going to paste that in. So there's, and that's that. There's one little issue with this. It has a vertical bar, or some people call it the pipe symbol right here. And that will show up in the validator and show up as an error. So I have a little note in here for you guys. It says use %7C for the pipe character. So that is kind of a way that you can encode that character instead of using the actual vertical bar. And it actually will read as the same thing to the server. Anyway, just put in %7C right there instead of the pipe symbol, and then you should be good. Now, I don't think you'll get an error from that from the validator. So just wanted to throw that in there as a little warning. Okay, so that is that. So now we can go back and get the font to use, or get the CSS to use for our page. So for the body text, I want to use Crimson. So I'm going to copy the line that says font family Crimson text. This one right there. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go down to where it says add font family here. I'm just going to paste that in right there. And voila, it's already working. Voila, French. I think it's French. So now if I look at my page, it is in French. No, it's in Latin, but it is using that font called Crimson Text. And I probably if I was smart and had more time, I would add more backup fonts in here. So remember that the browser is going to use the first font that it can find that works. So since Crimson Text is working, it's showing that one. If not, it would show a generic serif font. I could probably put a few more in the font stack there to be more safe, but to save time, we will just leave it that way. So that's it. That's the whole page is now using Crimson Text there. And what we will do is now change our heading level 1. So for heading level 1, we wanted to use Butcherman. So I'm going to go back to my code here that's Google's nicely given to me. I'm going to copy the line that says Butcherman in it. Just copy that. And go back here and add that in. And boom, there you go. Let me get these other pages out of the way. I don't think we need this right this minute. So now we can see that we've got Butcherman up here. And it's got some fun effects on it and junk. But anyway, so that is basically it for using those two pieces of CSS and those two fonts. Now, the one thing we want to do is we wanted to use a different version of the Crimson text on this orange text here. So the way we do that is all we have to do is go to where it says H2 orange here. And I'm going to add the Crimson text again. So let me grab that. Grab this here. And put it there. It's already Crimson text because it's inheriting from the body, but we'll throw that in there just to make it clear. And then if something changes on the body, maybe we change our mind on the wrapper here. Maybe we change our mind later and we don't use Crimson text. This will stay Crimson text because we put that in there. And then I'm going to add font style, and I'm going to add italic. And so what it's doing now is it's using that other version of Crimson text that we downloaded from, or is being downloaded from the Google server. So now this text is that other version that we saw from Google. So, oh, I forgot to mention I had a little article. It's probably in there for you guys too. It's just scary fonts. That's probably in your folder. We can get rid of that. Little bonus. So because we called italic here, we said font style italic, it's using that other version. And you can see it up here again in the link text. If you look here, the link tag, here it says 400, that's the regular version of the Crimson text. Here's Crimson text, right? And then here's 700I. 700 is the weight, that's pretty bold. And then the I is italic. So it's using the different version of Crimson text that was provided by Google. So there you go. So now we're using two different versions of Crimson text, one the regular and one the bold italic version. All right. So I think that does it for that one. So now we want to go use a font from Font Squirrel. So that's a little bit different procedure. So this is Font Squirrel. It's a place where you can download fonts. They not only have fonts that are downloading from their own servers, but they're linking to other font foundries and places that make fonts and things like that. So there are many, 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 many different kinds of fonts in here. If you scroll down a little bit on the right, there are lots of categories you can search by, even more than the Google fonts. Sans serif, display, oblique, headings, bold, sans serif. Did I say sans serif twice? All caps, retro, distressed, grunge, all these different categories and things. You can also filter. So if I go down to where it says font filter, I'm going to click on where it says web font. And that is because I only want to search fonts. I'm going to filter out, and I only want to search fonts that I can use that have web font versions. So that will get rid of some of the fonts that I don't really want to use or can't really use. So I'm actually going to use a font called Bloody. And I don't want to have you guys sit there while I search for fonts. I kind of already found this, right? So this is Bloody. And what you're looking for is a font. Whoops. Sorry. Go back to Bloody. There it is. What you're looking for is a font that has a font face kit. So if I click on that, where it says font face kit right there, you'll see that I can download a font face kit and I can add different versions of different font file types. So up till fairly recently, different browsers and different devices even liked different types of file formats. So it was pretty complicated actually. So you can see we've got WAF, that's web-only file format. That's recommended, works in all the modern browsers. TTF is TrueType font, not recommended, replaced by WAF. EOT is only for IE versions older than IE9. And SVG is scalable vector graphics, which used to be used a lot on iPhones and iOS devices. So you could get away with just using WAF, but if you want to cover your bases a little bit, you might want to check some of these other ones. So I'm going to check all these. And it's not going to hurt anything really, but I wanted to show you how you could do that. And then I'm going to click on download at font face kit. And I think that downloaded. Yeah, so here's my downloads folder. And there is the Bloody font face. Oh, that's gross. Bloody font face kit. And you can see it has a file called how to use web fonts. And then it has the license there. And then in the folder for web fonts, it has the actual font files, EOT, SVG, TTF, and WAF. There's a style sheet which we can use and a demo page. So I'm going to open the demo page. Actually, I'm going to open the how to use web fonts to show you that first. Didn't open. Let me see if I can get that to open right. There we go. So this is kind of like it has a handy dandy helper file here that tells you how to use them. Has some of the sample code you need to use, but I have a different version in here as well that will help you be a little more easier. Talks about troubleshooting, all kinds of stuff like that. There also is a demo file. So if I click on that, I'll open that one for you guys. Here's the demo file. And it shows you how that font looks at different sizes and colors and all kinds of crazy stuff. There's a sample layout. Now you wouldn't use this font, obviously, for body copy. This is body copy, right? That is not very readable. It's pretty mean if you do that. And then if I click here, you kind of see the same file that we saw before. This one, how to use pretty much the same thing there. One other thing that's in there, lots of stuff in there, is the style sheet that's using for this page. So if I double click that and open it, it's a CSS file. I can actually use this font or use this code here. So I'm going to take this code. So what I did again is I opened the file that was in the web fonts folder in the bloody normal Macroman folder, gross. And there is stylesheet.css. So that's the file I just opened. And it looks like this. So it already has replaced the generic name of the font that was in the instructions with the actual font name. It's called Bloody Web Font. Gross. I picked a gross font. All right, anyway, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to my web page and where it says add code from font scroll and correct the path. So I'm going to go here and paste that in. Now, I don't think I put my fonts in there, did I? So I'm going to go back to the folder. Here's the font files, these 4. I'm going to copy those. I know this is getting a little complicated, but I'm going to copy those, and then I'm going to go back to my folder that I'm working in, which is this web font example start. And hopefully I had a font folder in there for you if I was nice. So here's a font folder. I'm going to go inside the font folder there and paste. So now I've put the 4 types of font files in the font folder. And that's pretty typical with web fonts. You might have a folder that you have just for fonts to keep them kind of straight. So here's my structure of my document or my folder. Here's the page you're working on, web fonts example start. Here's the font folder with the fonts inside. So to use this now, I need to go fix that path, right? Because it's just like a link to any other type of file. Because the fonts are in the font folder, I need to fix this path and put fonts here. So I'm going to say fonts slash before every one of these font strings here. And the reason there's so many of these is because it's covering a lot of bases and little bugs and things in different browsers. So that's why this is more complicated probably than it needs to be. But it will cover all the bases. So there's what I have now. I just added fonts slash before all those. And now hopefully my path is right to all these fonts. We'll see. Okay, so we are just about done. So what I'm going to do is use this font on this H2 green, which says add font family and font style here. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'll just do it manually here. I'm going to say font-family. And the name of this one is Bloody Normal. So it should be the same thing as here. So I can just copy that. So I probably, yeah, copy that, put that there. And I might want to put a single quote around it. It'd probably work without it, but I'm going to put it around it anyway. And then my backup is going to be a serif, just a serif. And then if you look at your page, oh, there it is. There's the bloody font. So it says font scroll also has zombies. So that's in the bloody font, so that worked. Let me try without the parentheses. So the single quote is usually, yeah, it still works. So you don't really have to have that on there. Single quotes are usually used, or sometimes double quotes around font names when they have more than one word in the font name. So their code has it, but I don't think it actually needs it. It doesn't have to have it. Obviously, it works. So there is the bloody font. That's gross to say again. But yeah, I think that is about it on that. So I did want to show you going back to the web font. So if I go to back to the home page and I pick a font, the reason we have to check the license for these, and you want web fonts only, is if I just click on a random font here and I click on, see there's no web font kit, and that probably means that it's not licensed for use on the web. So you can't just put any old font on your server and use it as a web font, including fonts you have on your own computer. And I may have said that already, but because you're basically distributing the font. So again, you want to make sure that the license fits for use as a web font. That way you won't get in trouble for basically distributing a font that you don't own, because you're just kind of licensing the font. All right, I think that is about it. It's getting a little bit late here and dark, so I am going to end it. Oh, wait, what's that? Something's coming in the door!